I figured narrating our adventure getting to work today would be a lot quicker than me trying to write it out, so we're going to give it a try here. What you're about to see, believe it or not, is not as bad as the flooding we had a week ago, but it was bad enough, costing me to be an hour and 45 minutes late to work. Keith actually made it on time because we share the ride, and he goes to work about an hour and 45 minutes later than I do, apparently. Before we started to leave this morning, I took a look up down the road to see what the tidal flooding looked like, because last night we hit major tidal flooding, took us an extra hour to get home. And this morning it didn't look bad. Usually we have the one major flooding, and then the next day, the next tidal flood cycle doesn't work as bad as the previous one. Well, that wasn't the case today. We headed out, and in a matter of minutes, everything changed as soon as the strong southwest winds blew everything in. This is the quiet part of the road, which you're looking at right now. And you got to keep in mind that these scenes that you're going to be seeing from here on out covers about a 10 to 13 mile stretch of road. It's all salt water, you can't go fast, so you're crawling at less than 5 miles an hour so as not to splash all the water up into your engine. The water was too deep, it got into our rotors, unfortunately, so we had to hose the truck down when we got home from work tonight. This scene is coming up on the docks. The water here is probably a good six inches deep, and just take our time and get through it is about all that we could do. We got up to the docks and we came to a dead stop. You can see the debris in the road, a truck trying to come through, and you can see how hard the water is blowing across. We weren't sure we were going to make it through this stretch, so we stopped and waited for the truck to come on through. The truck seemed to make it, so we decided that we could probably make it. But to give you an experience of what it's like, this next section you're going to see, it's about a 12-second video that we made. You can actually hear the wind and see the water blowing across the road. After the truck went through, we took a deep breath and decided to give it a try ourselves. And here you can see right at the point of the dock where the widest part of the water is, the strength of the wind, the water coming right at us. But we made it this far, we decided to keep on going. Just past the docks, you can see another blow-in point. Looks like we're in a really protected area. And we are, but the winds were just blowing so hard at this point, there wasn't much to stop the water. It would piled up and was coming on pretty strong. Just past this point is the deli that I was originally going to stop at to call my work to tell them that I was going to be late. But unfortunately, I couldn't even get out of my truck because they were flooded out too. Deli itself was fine. All the buildings are built up high down here, but I would have been over ankle deep, but certainly not knee deep, trying to get to the door, and I just didn't feel like getting wet. Past the deli, we come up on a friend of ours' house, Dan's house, and you can see the extent of the flooding that went into the people's yards. We didn't pick this house because it was the exception, it was the rule. Now keep in mind that we're in the flooded part on the road as I'm looking over, driving slowly by to take a picture of his house. Like I said, we're going through a good 10 to 13 miles of this flood tide. Up a ways past Dan's, and before we get to Carolyn's, we hit another open stretch of water. The open stretch of water is to the left, and the wind just carried everything right on in. As you can tell, it's super flooded. The water here was probably a good 8 to 10 inches deep, and at this point we knew that the rotors were going to be soaked with salt, but at least we still kept going slow because you can't get the engines all salty. Unfortunately, all the hunters down here that aren't familiar with these kind of flood tides don't realize that, and we've seen a few of the hunters driving by with their rooster tail thinking that this kind of flood water is fun to go through. Sure, it's fun until they get the repair bill on their truck, which I'm sure then they'll regret being impatient, being behind us going so slow. We're now passing Carolyn's over on our right. You can see the road is still flooded, but don't let those yellow lines fool you. The water here is still a good half a foot deep. You can see it spills right on over into the yards, and it's still just a slow going mess. A ways past Carolyn's and getting near the high country, you see the water is a lot shallower here. Here it's probably only 2 or 3 inches deep. The truck in front of us is going a little too fast though, because this is still salt water. And you don't want that salt water in your engine. Let that be a lesson to anyone listening. You come down here and you see water on the road, you go very, very slow. It is salt water. Salt and engines do not mix. Finally, we make it to the high country, and it's flooded. This part of the road rarely floods unless it's a exceptionally high flood tide like today was. You can see the water has already started receding by the time we got up here, because the incoming tide had now turned to an outgoing tide. That's how long it took us to get this far. Like I said, I ended up being an hour 45 minutes late to work, and you might be asking why I recorded all this. It's because my supervisor didn't understand what tidal flooding was. Anytime that you call out from work because it's weather related, you're not penalized for it. However, I found out last week that since I was the only one that called in based on a flood tide, it wouldn't be considered weather related. So I had to bring this video in as proof that when I say we're having tidal flooding down here, I'm not exaggerating the severity of it. And that's your little tour of our adventure getting into work this morning. If you're ever down here, take your time. You can get through the water. Just remember, it's salt water, so don't let the depth of it fool you.